Welcome, viewers. This is Dex of the Black Pants Legion. Now, this is an interview. I've spoken with admins of Space Station 13 before, and they are notoriously antisocial types who generally don't like to talk with or at people for prolonged periods of time, as they are judge, jury, and executioner on a server and can be seen demonstrating favoritism, at least in theory. Anyways, here's how this works. I'm putting out an open call to any and all Space Station 13 admins on any public listed servers. This call is here, so answer it. If you are interested in answering or participating in an interview about Space Station 13, its history, and your server, please respond. See the description below for an email contact. I'll try to get to you and we can set something up. That being said, this is an interview with an admin for Space Station 13. The questions are largely freeform and the discussion does not reflect exactly the policy of the server unless stated otherwise by the person I'm interviewing. The reason I say this is I want to encourage an admin to be frank, honest, and open about their experiences without worrying that they're shitting on the server, or to prevent them from being yelled at for representing the server community in a negative light. This is a point of view and not, I repeat, not an absolute definition of doctrine on said server. That being said, I welcome our first interviewee of the day. Please, internet person, tell me your name you wish to go by, your server, and your admin rank.
Hey everyone, I happen to be Stealthkibbler from FTL-13 and I'm a game admin there. If any of you play on FTL-13, you might know me. I'm generally pretty damn active. We're only up on the weekends though, so we are a pretty obscure bunch.
Alright, so tell us about your server, its history, and what makes it unique.
So FTL-13 is more or less it's FTL in an SS-13 setting. And a lot of people might look at this and ask, well, how do you go about that? And the simplest way to put it is it's a space station, right? Like the SS-13 scenario theme, we even use the same lore with the Syndicate and Nanotracing, but it's on a ship that can move from planet to planet and engage in ship-to-ship combat. And, yeah.
I've played a bit on FTL-13 myself, done quite a bit of recording on it, had quite a bit of fun. It's very, very interesting to go from planet to planet and see how that works out. Now, here's a good question, though. From your perspective, why should a player play on your station, and what makes it truly interesting to play on?
Well, if you're someone who's been playing Space Station 13 for a long time, and there generally is a lot of people like this because it's been around for almost more than a decade now, if not more than that. And what makes FTL-13 so unique compared to other servers is obviously the ship-to-ship combat, but the fact that it's mainly PvE, which is, player versus environment. So a lot of the time, unlike your generic SS-13 environment, you are working together to overcome an obstacle or an objective given to you by the game or the admins, and that is really what sets it apart from other servers. Because you have this predetermined environment, this objective which you need to complete, which is usually, kill a bunch of syndicate ships, kill pirate ships. And then on top of that, a lot of players who have played don't notice this because this is something that actually goes on in the admin logs behind, but the entire nav map, the entire universe that the players are playing in is simulated. So while the players are out doing their objectives, collecting minerals, killing ships, there is an entire, government system and whole fleets being deployed, sent to other sectors, engaging in fleet battles, and that's what really sets it apart from your average SS-13 server, is that simulated environment that you really don't get.
It's very interesting, very interesting. So what is the most common thing new players ask on your station, or at least a help about?
It's mostly to do with the SM engine, the Super Meta Shard engine, because we do get a lot of issues regarding that, since it is kind of a quote-unquote snowflake engine, because it's not your average Super Meta Shard engine. For a first, it doesn't produce, the same amount of radiation as a normal shard would, because the whole point of it is it's kind of like trying to warm a bunch of donk pockets with the heat from a nuclear reactor instead of using said power to, power up a microwave. And that's basically how it works. So you're using a nuclear reactor for, whatever it's called,
The
to do with,
TEG?
Yeah, the TEG, that's right, which is, I believe, thermo energy or something. Thermal.
Thermoelectric generator, I believe. Hot cold loop.
Yes, that's it. You know it better than I do. I don't play engineer all that much.
I've played engineer badly.
Hey, everyone does on their first few tries.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
All right, that's all right. So another thing we get A helped a lot about is the planets and how all of the ship combat works and how to mine. Mining is such a huge thing in FTL, and it gives you such a huge bonus and benefit to completing your objectives. And a lot of players tend to ask, "How do I mine?" Like they join as a miner and they're like, "How do I get to the mine area?" The simplest way to put this is you have to bother command to go to a planet, preferably a lava planet because it has the most minerals on it and every type of mineral you want. And once they get to the planet, they then land on the planet, and then you can then go out and do your mining business. And on top of that whole scenario is we also get the question following up on that is how do I make a colony? Because unlike like this is a thing that really sets us apart from other servers is you can make a colony, and that colony will persist even when the ship is moving from place to place. And the way you do this is the ship will have two of these telecommunication hubs. And if you've ever played on FTL-13, you would see these in cargo and EVA. And what you do is they're like a telecoms hub, except you wrench it down, you turn it on, and it creates a relay. And a lot of players tend to ask, well, how does this work? And it's as simple as I just said. You take it out of cargo or EVA, take it on the planet. It has to be outside the shields of the ship. And once you get it out there, you then wrench it down. It has to be powered too, so that's another thing to keep in mind. It's very important. You can usually just do that with a minor survival pod, since there's infinite power. And you just pop it down, turn it on with a multi-tool, and there you have your relay. And what a lot of players love to do, and this is something that is relatively new that a friend of mine implemented into the game, is quantum pads. And they're a thing from TG, which him and me and a bunch of other people who play there love. And what you can do is you set up the relay, put it in a pod, you then put a quantum pad down in the survival pod and then on the ship. And this allows you to basically fluently travel to and from the planet, even when the ship is on the other side of the galaxy. And that is a question we get asked a lot, how to mine. And that is a very easy way to go about mining. And it's a very, very reliable way to do it because it allows the miners to mine when the ship is not even out of planet. But yeah, that's to do with the whole mining aspect of it.
No, but that's interesting. I mean, you're obviously very passionate about your time on this server. You say you play a bit on TG, yeah?
I have played on TG on and off. Not all that much these days because there's been a few games that come out that I've been wanting to play recently. But when FTL is up, I do try to spend as much time as I can on the weekends.
All right, all right. I generally, sometimes ask admins, what is their preference on server? Where do they like to spend their time when they do play Space Station 13, and what roles do they play?
For me, I think it's very subjective. It's obviously a very subjective thing, and it depends on a specific person's interest, their experience with the game, how much time they have to invest in like said rounds and stuff. Personally, myself, I have a lot of spare time. I mean, not that I don't do anything like in real that like takes up any of my time, but because of the stuff that I have to do in real isn't like something that I have to go out to another like town or anything to do. I generally have a lot of free time to commit to the game. And for me, when I first started playing SS13, I started off as a chef because to me the chef is the easiest role to start off as. And then I moved on to engineering, and after a few singularity escapades, I then eventually started playing the other roles and went around. And for me, the most favorite role in all of SS13 is the chef. And I just love the chef. Like the chef is that one role where you can just sit there in the kitchen, you just make food, you do whatever you want, and no one will bother you half the time. Like you can just do what you want, and it's your own isolated environment to experiment in. For the servers that I play on, the first ever server I played on was Yog Station, and I played on there for a long time. And for me, I eventually started, Yog Station started to kind of drag away from what I loved about it. And then I went on to go play on TG because a friend of mine, Keekanox, he was like, hey, you need to play on TG. TG has like everything that you want. And I'm like, okay, I'll try TG. And I played TG, and it does have a lot of good stuff on there. But the only problem I had with TG was it's getting updated like every single day, almost every hour even. And that really like made me detract from the server because I didn't feel like it was a consistent environment to play in. It felt like it was constantly changing, that I had to keep up with everything to be able to enjoy it all. So then from there, I then moved on to other servers like playing on and off on Colonial, because it's the whole pick a gun, shoot shit kind of deal. It's pretty simple, pretty fun to play. You just experience the whole bravado of playing with like your fellow Marines. And then when I heard FTL came up, like after all these like years of playing, because I have been around the SS13 community for 3 years around now, almost 4. And when I heard about FTL-13, I thought, oh hey, I'll go play on FTL-13. I played it and I thought, this is a really cool concept, and I actually love what they're doing here. And I asked the admins, and some of the admins at the time that I was playing actually had no idea how to use a lot of the verbs, had very little admin experience in general. A lot of the admins on SS13, on FTL-13 even, are admins because they are developers for the game. So they need admin powers because they're developers. They're expected to be trusted with those powers, and no one else would really argue otherwise on the staff team. They are trusted members of the community. And so I said to myself, you know what? I've had previous admin experience on Yogs, so I thought I will try and apply for FTL-13 and see if I can do my part and help the community and stuff. And in the few weeks that I've been a part of FTL-13 as a staff member, I've managed to not only solve a lot of disputes between a few players and stuff, but also I've been able to teach newer mods and stuff who are brand new to the whole administration aspect of SS13, and also teach them how to admin so that they can better steel themselves for when it comes to a tough situation and they don't generally know what to do. And that's what I love about it.
All right. Now, what would you say are the greatest challenges you faced as an admin personally?
I think the hardest part of being, if you are truly passionate about the community you admin for, the hardest part is deciding on a punishment for a player. Like, sometimes you will get players that you, in your opinion, just like, man, this guy's a real piece of shit, and I don't like the fact that he's, playing like this. And then on the top side of that, you're going to get players who, get into fights with other players. They take it a little too far. They over-escalate it, and they fight. And then you have to step in as an admin at one point and be like, hey, this needs to stop. You can't do this, guys. Like, you need to just learn when to, quit picking on each other like this and basically being assholes. So the hardest part for me is when I basically have to step in and tell the players they can't do this, when preferably I would basically just be like, it's an IC issue. But realistically, if I said that, they would just keep doing it, and it could turn into something as bad as a meta grudge. And then when shit becomes a meta grudge, it gets really bad. We've had this issue on FTL-13, and usually the easiest way to solve it is for a static, for a, identity ban, that's it, an identity ban, which doesn't let a player pick a static name because static names are usually the source of a lot of meta grudging. And
yeah, I've sadly learned that with Randolph B. Checkers.
Yeah, some people praise you, but there are those out there who really don't appreciate, how other players play, and it tends to, rub them the wrong way.
Yeah, especially when you call someone a Grey Tider who is a Grey Tider, they take that very personally.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, I'll fight you with my stolen gloves. I mean, what? So it's, yeah, Grey Tider's gonna tie. So, what do you think are the greatest problems with Space Station 13 and its community today, or at least from the perspective of your server?
Drama. Drama is a very, to me, drama is a double-edged blade. It can be healthy because, it keeps everyone entertained. It keeps the community flowing. It allows the community to expose problems and flaws and for people to make it better. On the flip side, it also feeds a lot of negativity. Drama can be a very, toxic aspect of the game, but it's also a thing that drives the whole community as a whole for SS13. I personally have been a part of a lot of drama before and seen a lot of drama in my time being in the community. And like, you really can't spend as much time as I have in the community and just kind of like be entertained, disgusted, annoyed, and angered and happy all at the same time, like in a consecutive form of like just multiple drama over like the years. Because you look at all these issues, right, and then you think, oh, that's funny. That guy like shit talked that one admin, or holy shit, that guy was a real piece of fucking ass for doing that to that admin, or these two players are like fucking shitting on the server. It's just all this drama. Some of it's unnecessary. Some of it's like healthy for the community to develop. A lot of people look down on drama as a whole, but I personally think it's both a curse and a blessing for the SS13 community.
So, what is your opinion on people who play on your server and record, or those who aim to stream on servers?
So, streaming, like actively streaming the round, has always kind of been a taboo thing in the SS13 community. Like, as I said before, if you've been around long enough, you would probably know this, that people will look down upon streamers very, very grudgingly so, because streaming can encourage very toxic gameplay. Personally, for me, if two friends are playing, like, you have to really compare streaming to other forms of like people playing together and made a comment. For me, if two friends or a bunch of friends are playing together and they made a comment, as long as they're not using that advantage that they have to, fuck over other people in a malicious way, I personally try not to have any issues with it because I view friends playing friends as an inevitable thing. It's going to happen. And if you just ban or like, tell everyone who does that to fuck off from your community, you're going to end up with a lot of people who don't want to play there. And a lot of people from TG seem to acknowledge this fact that, meta buddies and meta comms and stuff is going to happen. Well, they do look down upon that stuff quite a lot over there. It is going to happen, and it does happen. And a lot of the time, you just have to turn the other cheek and say, they're not really doing anything actually bannable. They're just playing the game. They just want to have fun. And this really boils back to my motto as an admin, and that I've developed over time playing SS13 is a long time. And it's that past all the drama, the hate, the childish anguish, and all of that stuff. We're all just trying to play a game of 2D Spacemans and have fun. And that's really what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a healthy mentality to have. So, what do you think makes a good admin good?
I feel like it's a multiple assortment of things. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, obviously, and everyone has their opinion on it. But for me, it's, good understanding of all the verbs, your commands, everything you have access to as an admin. And on top of that, being able to just communicate with players. Sometimes you really have to be a hard ass about things. Like, sometimes players are going to be cheeky little cunts, and they're going to be like, well, you can't tell me to do that because this rule says this, and you're like, talking to me about this. And sometimes you just really have to put the foot down and be like, listen here, you little fucking shit. I know these rules, and you can't be fucking doing this. It's bad. It's bad. You hear me? And then you give them a little slap on the wrist, and then usually they like understand it, but sometimes it can make the situation worse. And really, it's down to the player whether they want to like actually be friendly to the admin or not. You can do so much as an admin, only to have a player bark back at you. And that's really the community's choice as a whole, whether they want to accept an admin's opinion on stuff.
So, what do you think makes a bad admin bad? Like, just something that would make them totally unqualified for the job?
In my opinion, I think it would be someone who just, they don't know the verbs. They don't know like all their powers. They don't bother to learn those said verbs that they don't know. And a lot of people might like turn to it and be like, oh, I think a bad admin is, not listening to players, being mean to players, being an asshole to players. But that's just how some admins are. Sometimes you have a bad day, you get on, you just want to admin or play the game, and you're in a bad mood, and that just happens. It's inevitable. People just need to learn to get over it. But what really, really like sets apart a bad admin from a good admin is the understanding of how to admin, and that is obviously all the commands you have. Some admins will not know as much like commands as others. Some admins have been around long enough to know everything you can do as an admin to the point that they can solve an issue in just minutes or seconds from when it pops up.
On the nature of balance between shitcurity and the Grey Tide, what's your opinion on how to maintain it?
On FTL-13, we have a custom set of space law. As someone who played security a lot back on Yogg Station, a server that actually has an actual server rule that states you have to follow space law to the T as an officer. I got very accustomed to space law to the point that I could argue it with an admin and almost always win that argument because I knew it more than they did. And on FTL-13, we have ship law, which is a kind of like a variant of space law, except everything is harsh. So when it comes down to security and Grey Tide on FTL-13, sometimes officers use lethal force because they do spawn with lethal weapons. And on other servers, this is frowned upon. Like, generally, you want to just try and capture people, and bring them and punish them for what they did, because killing them usually doesn't solve all that much. And that's correct. Like, you can kill them, it'll put them out of the round, but the easiest way to do things is just throw them in brick. They're going to sit there, they're going to whine, they're going to bitch, they're going to have nothing to do. And more on the concept of Grey Tide, people are going to Grey Tide. Sometimes people just want to go assistant, they want to fuck around, they want to have fun. And then on the other side of that, you're going to get admins who are going to look down upon that, and then you're also going to get security members who are going to be like, man, that guy's a fucking criminal, and they're going to like hunt these people down. And personally, I think Grey Tide is okay in some semblance or form. It tends to really, rub people the wrong way, obviously. When you have assistants coming into your department, fucking with your staff without like talking to you about it, and then when you obviously tell them to go away, they might like turn to you and be like, fuck you, man, this is my territory now, and they might do their whole Grey Tide mating call, and then next thing you know, there's a whole swarm of the fuckers in your department.
Yeah, they can certainly turn from boring to crazy in about 10 seconds. So,
Yeah.
so in your opinion, what is the best AI law set and why?
I personally like Paladin. I don't believe it's around on TG or Yogs anymore, but back when it was, I absolutely loved Paladin because AIs inherently are going to help security with antags. They're usually going to try and quote unquote valid hunt. It's kind of something that AI just boils down to from your occasional door opener. And when it comes down to the whole AI laws, I like Paladin because it's a versatile law. It protects everyone but the actual dickheads in the crew. So if one person is being a piece of shit, a Paladin AI or board can basically punish them for that. It does tend to lead to a lot of issues where people will call out rogue AI, but people do that anyway with Asimov all the time. So I honestly don't think it's that much of an issue. But Paladin is my favorite law set because of how much freedom it gives to the AI, but at the same time it doesn't allow the AI to just murder everyone for like one issue.
All right. Now, what is the best trader you've ever seen as an admin?
As an admin, that would be really hard. I played on Yogs a lot when I was admin back on there, and Yogs has this kind of behavioral tendency to just have really bad antagonists because Yogs gets a lot of new players, and I don't really like to speak for it too much because I haven't admin on there for a long time. But back when I did admin on Yogs, the best antag I ever saw was a player who preemptively hacked the AI, purposely got caught by security, and then had secborgs roll into the permabrig, down comms, and then killed all of security while they were in the permabrig with them, and they didn't even know that it was the antag that hacked them because they thought, oh, we caught them, There's no way they could hack anything because we caught them. And then that one antag basically just owned the whole station, like they could do whatever they want, and I thought that was a really, really clever antag. They were really smart about what they did. On FTL, we have extended rounds, so we don't get antagonists unless they're bust. And for the most part, I don't like try and play favorites in FTL-13 when it comes to antag, since it's a very subjective thing that admins have to, submit their judgment upon.
Yeah. So what is the worst antag you've ever seen? Like
Oh boy.
embarrassingly bad.
I've seen a lot of bad antags, but what really takes the cake is it's because I play security a lot. I really saw a lot of bad antags, and what really like boils down to a bad antag is, I mean, when you when you buy stuff like supply crates, like the 20 TC supply crate that gives you like I think it's like 30 or 40, I think it's 50 on TG. I don't know if it got nerfed, but
Yeah, the surplus crates. They have a little bit of
yeah,
everything, but you don't have a call over what it is.
yeah, exactly that. And people who buy those and then just like leave them lying around, and then you like forensic scans them, and it's got their prints and everything, and then you run up to them in the hallway as a security officer, or a security officer runs up to them, tases them, and then like searches them, and then like you get an a-help about it, and they're like, this officer like made a game, power game me, and it's like, hey, why'd you arrest that antagonist? Like, prints, man, the prints don't lie.
Yeah, it's a fairly obvious line of stuff, and on some servers, you really can't fuck up and leave any trail, or you'll get robusted.
Exactly. Especially on servers like Hippie, where they really don't have any restrictions for how much security can push it. And even then, like even if you're not a security member, you can generally do that kind of stuff on Hippie, just hunt antags because they don't really have much of a ruling on that.
Yeah. Now, what is the best or favorite round of Space Station 13 you've witnessed so far?
Oh, this dates back to almost 2 years ago on Yogs, but this one still really sits in my heart as one of the best rounds I've ever experienced and seen as a player and an admin. But there was a round where I was the captain, and we had a nuke ops like coming in. This was back before war ops was a thing. Obviously, this was really like back in prehistoric SS13, and we were just sitting there, like we were doing the whole tactic where you just blotch up in one area, like in the captain's office, and just camp there. And this was on box station, so you had to run across the whole right side of the station to get to the shuttle. And we had wiped out every op except one, and there was one op left, and most of the crew was already dead. So I grabbed the disc, went with my loyal officer who was still alive and with me, and as we got to the shuttle, the op was there waiting for us. Like he was there with an e-sword and everything. And then an admin started playing the final countdown song, like as a MIDI. And it was the most exhilarating and exciting moment I've ever had because like we were just duking it out in the shuttle. Like we didn't get a single crit hit on each other, so it was just raw damage going at it, and it was so fun. Like it was one of the best experiences I ever had in SS13, and it really goes to show like an admin stepping in at the right moment can really make the difference for the player.
So, what is your opinion on nations rounds when they emerge?
I personally have not had a nation like experienced or done a nations round in a long time. I feel like they, on Yogs at least, admins kind of got kind of stopped hosting events like that because players tend to like point to the admin and be like, I know this happens on TG too, but it did happen on Yogs where players would point to the admin in question who hosts the event, and then just from the small minute people who are upset, you could end up getting a strike in trouble or blah 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 blah, and it really killed the passion for a lot of admins with the events. And the last nations rounds I ever had was actually on TG, and I was playing with my buddy Keekanox, and we were I think he was the head of security that round, and he like hit me up and beyond. He's like, "Hey, TG's having a nations round. You need to come play this. This is going to be fun as hell." And I'm like, you know what? Why not? I haven't played in TG in a while, so I like jumped on, and I joined security, and I was like, I ran over to the brig, and the admins did this really fun thing for nations where because Keek was the head of security at the time, they made him the big hoss because the whole Metal Gear game with
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
Konami shit came out recently, and they made him Big Hoss, and then he basically made all of security a mercenary company, and it was so fun. Like I feel like nations can be really fun, but you really have to interact with the players as an admin during nations. I'm all for nations. I think it's a good round type. It's just sometimes you have to understand that players will jump the gun very quickly on nations. People are basically given a ticket to just murder other people in nations, people are going to get salty a lot on nations compared to normal SS13 rounds because of that freedom that they have, and because sometimes players rely on the restrictions and rules that the admins kind of have to enforce. And with nations, it's a lot different. And personally, I've had a few gripes with nations, but for the most part, I like nations for what it is.
All right. It's a good answer. It's very thorough. So what is your opinion on why a lot of players are telling me that their prayers are never answered?
Oh, I feel like this is a very, very controversial like question and a very funny one at the same because it's so a thing that players need to understand with prayers is that more often than not, a prayer will come up at a very inopportune moment for an admin. Sometimes admins might be just playing the game themselves and trying to enjoy themselves. Sometimes they might be handling tickets. And sometimes admins just might not even have the permissions to fulfill your request in your prayer. Like that, it's usually that. On FTL-13, we've had a lot of prayers. A lot of them go unanswered. And this is because a lot of the time we have moderators on, and now that we have a lot more game admins now, we do have the permissions to actually, reward players for these prayers and for interacting with the admins in a very fun way. But when it comes to prayers, we don't get a notification or anything. We don't get any big bloop sound stuff unless you're the chaplain. Thing to keep in mind is if you're playing the chaplain, whenever you pray, it plays a loud as fuck like Jesus sound to all the admins who are listening. And if you want attention as a chaplain, you just pray like a motherfucker, and you will get the admin's attention eventually. But as a normal player, as a normal crew member, even your prayers will not get noticed because they get drowned out in the logs. An admin is either too busy or just doesn't have the permissions to do it. But I believe if you persist enough as a player, and if you're lucky enough, an admin might just answer your prayer, and you might end up having the best round of your life.
Awesome. Awesome. So, in your opinion, what is the very best map for Space Station 13 and why?
I played a lot on Box Station. Box Station was was literally the only map on Yogs actually when I was on there, and I love it for its simplicity. It's medium sized. It has a decent maintenance system. The departments are really convenient in the way they're placed. Aside from obviously science being on the other side of the station from cargo, but for the most part, I kind of really liked Box because it kind of latched onto me as I played the shit out of it.
So, in your opinion, what is the best antag role and why?
I mean, some people might call me an old fag here, but I've kind of I really love just normal classic trader. I mean, nothing spells, classic antagonism like a goddamn trader because I used to love Changeling, but I started to after playing trader a lot more on Yogs back when I first played him before I was an admin. I started to realize how fun trader is because you have all of these game modes these days. Like you have Shadowlings on Yogs. I believe they were a thing on TG for a while but got removed. You have Aliens, which Colonial Marines does a good job of doing. You have Clockwork Cult, Blood Cult, which kind of clash together sometimes, which is really cool. And then you have Changelings, Abductors, and all other kinds of crazy shit like Revolution and Gang. But for me, Classic Trader really does it because you have a sleeper agent on the ship, and he basically has a few objectives to do, and then he just does his objectives in the most creative and best way he can, or he fucks up, and it ends up being a very funny or cool experience. And that's why I really love Trader because it's the one role that really makes you shine as a player in an antagonist position. A lot of the other roles are teamwork oriented, whereas with Trader you're usually on your own. You usually have to, it's the best form of testing your robustness, as some people might put it. And for that, I really love Trader, and it's really a role I feel that's kind of underwhelmed in terms of player opinions because people look at it and they think it's been around for so long that probably doesn't have as much significance anymore. But really, it's the antag role that made the game. It's really what pulls everything together, whether it be the mechanics, the challenge, the paranoia, the conflict, hell, even the lore of the game, like going back to like the original Green lore with the Syndicate and Nanotracing and all the factions. It even like pulls all those together, and I believe like Apollo or some other server, I can't remember the server, but there's a heavy or medium RP server that does really well with that, and they wouldn't be able to do that without Trader, and it really like makes you appreciate that such a simple yet straightforward role can be so deep and complex in terms of gameplay.
I certainly agree with you on that. So, if you had one thing you could communicate to new players on your station, what would it be?
It's a very tough question. Communicate to new players on your station. Could you elaborate a little more? Because I'm a bit lost on that one.
So, let's say if you could have a billboard that popped up when they loaded into Beyond that welcomed them to the station, what would you want to tell them? What would you want to give them advice? What would you want to, how would you welcome them to your station?
For FTL-13, I would honestly just have the engineering guide for the supermatter engine just fucking plastered there in big bold text.
So you can't get around it. It's like a
Yeah.
big poster stapled to your eyes.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we have so many issues with the SM engine that, like, I wish we could just do that, honestly. Just plaster it there in front of people's faces so when they join, they see that. And if they ever want to touch the engine, because I would love, like, my dream with that SM engine is just everyone to know how to use it so no one fucks it up. Because it really holds down the rounds when people do fuck it up. But yeah, that's what I would pick, because personally I get tired of having to deal with SM issues sometimes.
I can imagine. So as we've reached near the end of the interview, my last official question is clown or mime?
Oh man, I'm team clown all the way. But sometimes when I like to be a dirty motherfucker, I sometimes pick mime.
Okay.
Sometimes you gotta indulge in the lesser things in life, and that is being a mime. But I love clown. Like clown is the goofiest part of it. It's what really sets apart the whole seriousness of the game, and I love clown for that.
All right. As we've reached the end of the interview, do you have anything you want to communicate to the Space Station 13 community? Shoutouts, apocalyptic warnings, requests, and so on. The time is yours.
Well, I mean, I would just like to, thank everyone in the S13 community as a whole. Like, even the people out there who, might be like, oh, well, what about this guy's a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. But, like, at the end of the day, like, I just tell everyone, we're just all here to play 2D Space. Like, past all the hatred, the anger, the man-child anguish, and the drama, we're just all here to play a game of 2D Spacemans and have fun. So just remember that when, like, you're fucking with some dude who, like, got in your way or anything.
All right. That's a good answer. I thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah, love to be here.